Yes, guys. Hello and welcome back to SpursRelated's YouTube channel. I hope everyone is doing very well. Bit cooler today in the UK, so hopefully not as many of you are melting, although there is a bit of a meltdown on social media at the moment to do with transfers, which is everything we're talking about today in the live stream. Today, I'm joined alongside, well, sort of fairly regular now, Frank Thomas. Not Thomas Frank, it is Frank Thomas, and this is no joke. That is actually his name. Frank, how you doing, mate?
I'm all good, thank you, mate. I'm all good. I'm excited to be back.
Great stuff, mate. Looking forward to discussing a couple different new links and a couple of stagnant ones that aren't really going anywhere. But also joined alongside Mitch Fretton, debutant on the channel. And yeah, Mitch, how you doing, mate? Great to have you on.
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on, firstly. Yeah, I'm a little bit rusty when it comes to like podcasts and live stuff, so bear with me on that. But no, it'll be good to just have a chat about Spurs and everything that's going on at the moment, because it's never a boring day without with the club. So it's yeah, plenty to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, all good, mate. Don't be silly about the whole rustiness. I mean, I went inactive on YouTube for about 18 months, so it doesn't get more rusty than me at the moment. So I wouldn't worry. I would not worry. Guys, we'll go live for about 40 minutes. I know a lot of you do watch on repeat. I mean, we went offline. Well, we went live yesterday around the same time. And we had about 300-400 views when I came off it. And then I woke up this morning. It was on about 2,000, which is crazy. So I appreciate people tuning in after the live is finished. Please do keep smashing that like button. I know I say it a lot, but it really does help the channel grow. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll also throw in Mitch's YouTube channel in just a bit as well, and get over to Mitch's channel, show him some love as well. But guys, enough of the promo, because you know I like to keep it, I try and keep it minimum, but you have to do it on this YouTube scene, unfortunately. I know it might be annoying, but it's what it is. Latest news. And I've got to clarify that this isn't what I would call a tier one piece of information. However, we do like to, you know, catch on to anything that's new and relevant to do with the transfer window and discuss things, you know, that are fresh here. And the latest link is Lukeba of RB Leipzig, a centre-back, a young centre-back that has been linked to us. And this is pretty fresh news, actually. This is fresh off the block, according to Sebastian Dennis. As I said, not a tier one journalist. I've got to be honest with Sebastian here, but you know, a pretty credible source. Apparently followed by Fabrizio Romano, Frank's told me. I mean, to be fair, I could probably be followed by Fabrizio Romano. It doesn't mean I'm tier one. So Castello Lukeba is open to a departure from Leipzig, and apparently his release clause is 90 million euros, which seems pretty steep for someone that's probably getting Googled by half of the fan base right now. Bayern, Tottenham, and Liverpool are apparently charmed by the international, and that Leipzig and Lukeba are okay with him being sold for less than 90 million euros. Now, I've got to say, first of all, fellas, I'm going to start with Mitch. Listen, I've just had to do a bit of research on Lukeba. I've heard of him. You know, I haven't watched him play many times. But, again, as I said, not tier one source. But firstly, does that not suggest that if we are linked with centre-backs, that someone else could be coming out that door and we know who? Or am I reading too much into that, Mitch? What do you think?
Oh, do you know what? That hadn't even crossed my mind until you just mentioned that. It's a weird one, isn't it? I think the Romero stuff's going to drag on all summer, so I think naturally journalists and again, I'm not too sure on the source, so it makes a lot of sense for journalists to pair Tottenham and centre backs or defenders together in general. I think because of how strong those Romero to Atletico Madrid rumours maybe are. I would hope that if we're going to sell arguably the only world-class player that we've got in our squad at the moment, we're not going to replace him with a 22-year-old centre-back that not too many people have heard of. I would want a serious, solid replacement in terms of if we did have to look elsewhere if Romero was to go. But I mean, there's a few issues with this Lukeba stuff for me. One of them being that Liverpool and Bayern are both interested in him. So I think it's fair to say naturally that we'd probably be at the bottom of the pile when it came to clubs that would be able to get hold of him. And to be fair, I won't sit here and pretend like I know too much about him. I know a very, very little amount, but Leipzig seem to always pop up with these sort of like batches of players, don't they, that become really, really good and maybe falls into that category. You know, you've got the Sesko stuff as well. So they've got some good talent at Leipzig.
Xavi Simons as well.
I'm just looking at his stats here. He's contracted till 2029 at Leipzig. So if he's got a 90 mil euro release clause, I know the source that you just pulled up said that they'd be willing to see him sold for less. I don't know how much less that would be. And you know what we're like when it comes to spending significant amounts of money in the transfer window anyway.
Yeah, no, fair points, mate. Fair points. Yeah, as you just said, 4 years left on his contract. Clearly not completely in the run-in at RB Leipzig. And as you said, Leipzig have a few gems, like you said, Sesko, Xavi Simons, who we'll also get to in this live streams for a little bit. I know a couple people in the chat, and welcome yourselves in. What's the point, FC? I love your carnage, mate. You know, Frank's already laughing because last time he was on, he was causing chaos in the causing absolute chaos in the comments. Carlos is in here. He said, I think if he leaves, he leaves quickly so we can replace him. A couple of the guys on also on Facebook. Guys, if you're on Facebook, come and join us on YouTube. You can interact a little bit more easily. I can pop your comments up more. And YouTube's the one we're really trying to drive at the moment. So I appreciate anyone that has a YouTube account to come over. But the question I wanted to get up from was from Orgala. Will Spurs come again with improved bid for Kudus? We're going to get into Kudus news in just a few minutes as well. We want to talk about the latest, which is Lukeba. But as Mitch was just saying there, Frank, coming over to you, in terms of, 90 million release clause, how much less can we get? Just from your background on him, and I know you've probably got a bit more knowledge than me, certainly on him. What can we expect? And is it? Do you have a bit of concern like me about potentially the fact we're linked with centre backs? Is this suggesting that maybe I'm just trying to create a story out of nothing? That's what we all love to do sometimes. But Christian Romero is obviously the talk of the town, and we're going to come on that as well. Come on to that as well in a minute. What do you think, Frank?
I'm not going to pretend I know masses about him. Again, like this, like Mitch said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert when I'm not. I think going back to sort of the first thing that Mitch said quickly about him being sort of a known replacement. I think I've been quite impressed with sort of certainly since I'd say Johan Lange came in. They're both about £8 million. None of us knew him, and we kind of laugh at the Danny Rose having to Google players sort of thing when we sign these guys. But I think the level of scouting at Tottenham has gone up a level in the last sort of year, 2 years, and so I kind of trust their judgment on players now most of the time. Having said that, he's left-footed, which kind of shuts down the whole thing for me. I don't think, I know you can have two left-footed players there. I'm not going to sit and say you can't, but it'd be a vast amount of money to spend on someone that is probably not as comfortable playing on that right hand side, which is going to be needed if Romero goes. I would still, I don't know who that Romero replacement will be, but I imagine it will be a right footer. Also with Lukeba before, is that he's not actually that big, which kind of surprised me. He's only 6 foot, and Thomas Frank has a history of having centre backs that are big, tall, strong players. But having said that, we don't have an abundance of sort of left-sided players. We've got, if you count Jed Spence as sort of a half one, you've got Udogie, you've got Ben Davies, you've got Mickey van der Ven. Unless I'm forgetting anyone blatantly obvious, Jed Spence sort of as a half one on that left-hand side. And so it would make sense. I don't understand. I think it'd be wrong at that amount of money to be someone that's coming as not an initial starter, unless he's unbelievably great with his right foot and better than I know he is.
No, very good points. Yeah, I think you've just shut down my rumor mill that I was trying to create about, Romero potentially going out the door. If Lukeba's more left-footed, as you rightly identified, and also, looking at how Leipzig's set up normally at 5 at the back, he plays as the left centre back. So again, reinstating there that he would almost be a backup to Mickey van der Ven. And why would we spend 60, 70, 80 mil on a backup for Mickey van der Ven? We just wouldn't. We've got adequate centre-back choices, probably too many centre-back choices in that squad at the moment. Sorry, I'm getting to a few comments again. What's the point of saying Kudus is Bergwijn 2.0? Well, we'll come on to Kudus in a minute. I'm sure that'll cause controversy in the chat. Get the engagements up, get people chatting. Darren Fearon saying, I hope we don't sign Lukeba because he was awful when I saw him in the under-21 tournament for France. He reminds me of Davinson Sanchez. Wow. Well, to be fair, Davinson Sanchez, that's I don't think that's the worst offense there. I think Davinson Sanchez showed signs he was good at times. He just wasn't. Yeah, he was a nightmare at times as well, wasn't he? Van der Ven won't play every match, says Carlos. Anyway, guys, keep putting your comments in the chat. Keep smashing that like button. I'm coming back over to Mitch now to go back to talking about Lukeba. And my question for you, Mitch, is, as we can see from this graph, his current market value, according to Transfer Market, is only 40 million euros. Now, that release clause of 90 million euros we were just discussing seems absolutely crazy. And again, I don't want to stick on Lukeba for the whole video, but just from that graph alone, he's had a slight dip from a 50 million pound valuation to around a 40 million valuation in the last year. That suggests to me that clearly he may be not in the greatest form. Again, someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but the fact that that's dipped slightly, that suggests to me that that's a player that's maybe not on his best form, and Leipzig are trying to maybe cash in while they can. What do you think?
Yeah, possibly. I always take the transfer market valuations with a pinch of salt because I look at our players sometimes and I see what they're valued at, and I just think it's absolute rubbish sometimes. I think they've got Bergvall and Archie Gray both valued at like 20 to 30 million or something, which always makes me laugh. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting one. He's 22 years old. I think he really impressed when he was at Lyon before he moved to Leipzig. He's played 26 games now for the France under-21 squad. Obviously, he's a key part of their squad that just competed in the Euros just gone. I mean, I know Darren has very clearly made up his mind about what he thinks of him. But, I don't know if he means when he's referring to or comparing him to Davinson Sanchez, whether he means he's overly aggressive or whether he's rash in possession or doesn't really look very comfortable with the ball at his feet. But yeah, going back to Frank's point about him being left-footed as well, I just don't really see where that then fits in, because I guess you can perhaps bring in cover for Mickey van der Ven, obviously in the case that he does get injured again next season, and perhaps that would be a sensible thing to do for most clubs when you consider Van der Ven's injury record. But him playing potentially on that right-hand side of the centre-back pairing, I agree, doesn't really make too much sense. And maybe Leipzig need to raise some funds. However, I'm sat here thinking if they're going to end up selling someone like Sesko this summer for like 60, 70 million, maybe that might not be the case. But yeah, but perhaps to be honest with you, they may be trying to cash in on him before he's gone over the top of the mountain in terms of his peak, while he's still got value to his name, especially if they think that he maybe has peaked already as well.
Yeah, no, good points, 100%. Yeah, potentially. I mean, RB Leipzig might be making some serious cash this window, because we've got Sesko, who's going to be going probably to Arsenal for a considerable fee. If this Lukeba stuff's true, that's a considerable transfer fee, right? And then you've also got Xavi Simons, who's been linked to Spurs and other clubs. So yeah, I mean, if they're having a clear out, they've got some serious funds as well. So yeah, pretty nuts. I'm gonna just bring up a couple more things on Lukeba. And guys, I've just looked, by the way, there's about 40 of you watching live on YouTube, and there's about 6 likes on the video, which is absolutely nuts. Do please smash a like. It's free to do so. Subscribe as well. We're really trying to grow the channel and go live for you guys every single day at the moment while the transfer window's on. So smash that like button for me. That'd be most appreciated. But I brought up his positions played. Now, it's not a very versatile player like we were talking about Kudus yesterday on the stream. Kudus can play central attacking mid, second striker, right wing, left wing, and even played central midfielder when he was in the Danish league back in the day. Lukeba very much is a centre-back. He's played 5 times at left-back, once at left midfield, probably because someone was injured. and the rest of his 142 appearances have been at centre-back. So, you know, we're really talking about a player that's not very versatile here. It's not exactly like a player that can slot in naturally at left back. Clearly, it's very much centre back or nothing. And the other thing I wanted to mention was around his sort of top sort of stats and attributes, just in case this does, you know, develop further. I'm not saying it's going to, but you know, 99 in terms of centre backs only. This is against other centre backs. He's in the top 99 percentile for successful take on. So he's a very progressive player. Plays very much on the front foot, drives forward, a bit like a Mickey van der Ven as well, kind of model of player. And top 87 percentile on the passes there, and 88 on progressive carries. So very much, you'd almost say this. Do you know what, guys? You'd almost say that he's an Ange Postecoglou centre back, not a Thomas Frank centre back. Would you agree?
I would say, I mean, we looked at it the other day and the centre backs, and we sort of focused on Pinnock and Nathan Collins a little bit, and that how he loves them to be progressive and sort of carry the ball and drive with the ball. And that was kind of my fear with losing Romero, is that I think he suits Thomas Frank's football perfectly, actually. And so reading those numbers there, it certainly makes more sense to suggest that he might be a name they're looking at. If he was someone that, if those numbers said he played left back 40 times, you know, and sent about 120 or whatever it was, I'd sit there and say it makes a lot more sense, because Van der Ven, as I think Carlos said in the chat, Van der Ven can't play every game. I've made that, you know, I said that the other day, that we've got at least bare minimum 48 games next season. And we're talking about a guy who's been injured relatively frequently since he's been here. And I mean, obviously, Ange's football is probably slightly more intense, so might be a reason for that. But I'm kind of... it would make more sense if he could play as a left-sided player as well, because I think, or as a left back, sorry, as well, because then you've kind of got your upgrade on Ben Davies as such, that you can, in your 48 games at least, you can play him on the left as a left back or as a left-sided centre back if you play as a 5. But the fact that he is predominantly a centre half kind of makes me slightly confused as to why he'd be one they look at. If he was right-footed, I mean, I think it would make perfect sense, but I don't see it.
Yeah, no. Let's absolutely. Let's see how this develops in the next sort of day or two. Let's see if we get a Fabrizio Romano saying we're also linked. Maybe by the end of this video, who knows, in this transfer window, because things are going to heat up. Let's be honest. We're in July now. We're at the start of a sort of a fresh slate on that financial fair play regulations, and you know, it gives teams a bit more flexibility and opportunity to sort of invest and start, you know, doing stuff in the transfer window, hopefully anyway, for Tottenham. As we know, it's a bit slow, you know, most years anyway. But that's enough about Lukeba. That was enough for the first 15 minutes. I thought I'd warm up on a new subject, because we have just been talking about on this channel Eze, Kudus, bit of Semenyo, although that's been nullified now that he's signed a new deal at Bournemouth till 2030 yesterday. So no Semenyo coming to Tottenham, that's for sure. We are going to talk about, it sounded like a broken record last 3 days, Mohamed Kudus is the talk of the town. And, you know, in terms of the latest updates on this one, there's a lot of regurgitated news from, like, you know, the likes of Fabrizio Romano and other journalists that are talking about it. But obviously, we did a bit of a review on how he would fit in at Tottenham yesterday on the channel. If you didn't see that one, go and check it out. But the latest update today is essentially that in recent hours, apparently contact between Tottenham and the camp of Kudus has taken place, and that Spurs are really working on a deal for Kudus. Talks are ongoing and the player is very open, and that Spurs are pushing and want to give the player to Thomas Frank. So to me, this seems like very much a Thomas Frank-driven signing. Spurs are kind of prioritising it. They're talking to Kudus' camp. Seems like West Ham are willing to sell for the right price. Mitch, I haven't had your opinion on Kudus, and I've said a lot about it on this channel in terms of I think he would offer something very different to Tottenham on that right-hand side in particular. Brennan Johnson not too capable of sort of beating his man. Very good at the back post, very good at finishing, very good at getting goals. But we haven't really got those players that sort of beat a man and make things happen on that wing. Do you, A, want a Kudus, and B, do you see this one happening?
Well, I think my answer is yes to both of those questions, to be honest. Look, Kudus wouldn't have been my first choice. I personally am a huge Eberechi Eze fan. It's like he ranks in the very similar vein to James Maddison to me. Like when James Maddison was at Leicester, I really wanted him to come to Spurs, and he did. And I've wanted Eze at Spurs for a couple of years now. So he was probably my top choice. And then Mbeumo I really like as well. But we can't make the decisions on who we sign, unfortunately. And Kudus is a very unique profile that I think is missing at Tottenham. He is not even arguably, he is statistically one of the best dribblers in the Premier League. And he showed, not necessarily last season, but the season before, he showed how good he can be in terms of his goals and assists. I know he didn't really get many last season. He had a few, I think, attitude problems. I think he was just generally sulking with that West Ham team. And I do feel like the way that they play and the way that they operate, it limits his capabilities a lot, because he's maybe relied upon as one of those players to drag them out of danger, and he's having to do these runs from just outside of his own penalty area into the other half just to relieve a bit of pressure off the rest of the team. So I feel like in a team like Tottenham, where you would hope that Frank's going to come in and at least try and implement a more front-footed approach and be more dominant in games than maybe a team like West Ham would be, then I think Kudus would be really, really good. I think he's versatile. I do think his best position is on the right, but he can play on the left and through the centre as well. And yeah, I don't think he's worth more than 60 million. I think 60 million is stretching it, if I'm being totally honest. But like I say, I do think we're missing that profile of player where you have that excitement factor. Do you ever remember thinking back and watching someone like Aaron Lennon, who every time that he picks the ball up, he's going to run at his player and he's going to try and go past them? Kudus is very, very similar to that, and arguably better with the ball at his feet. And I think that would bring a lot of excitement to Tottenham. And if he can sort of fine-tune his game to be maybe more clinical in that final third, then I think he will fit in very, very well with the players that we've got in our current squad. I think with players being snapped up on the transfer market as well, like Eze and Mbeumo, whoever else it may be, we need to get moving on this deal if we're going to get moving on it, especially with the Chelsea links and the fact that Arsenal may be signing Madueke, may open the door for Chelsea to go in for Kudus. So there's that issue as well. So if he's someone that Frank has identified after coming in as someone that he really wants and likes, and the board are willing to spend the money to give him that player, then go and get it done. And I'm sure most of the fan base will get behind the signing and at least give him a chance, even if he is coming over from that side of London.
No, 100%. I just got to say, we're singing from the same hymn sheet there, Mitch, because I didn't even see that Aaron Lennon link at all on social or anything. And yesterday in the live, I literally said, the last player that I can remember at Tottenham that got, bums off seats, if you like, an exciting player that does things in games out of nothing was Aaron Lennon, like 15 years ago now. And I completely agree with you. He's that kind of player. Hopefully, sort of can improve his end product, because I know 8 goals and assists in, I think, 30-something appearances last season wasn't exactly drastic and wasn't exactly, headline worthy. So, I mean, I completely agree with you. I completely agree that Kudus would really excite, the fans and make things happen in that new system that we're going to be adapting to. Very different Thomas Frank system to the Ange Postecoglou system that we've seen for the last couple of seasons, that's for sure. So we definitely need more Thomas Frank focused players that, that are going to adapt and mold straight away. Mustafa was asking, any updates on the Kyle Walker-Peters return links? No update as of such, but, I've seen a few Football London reports that say that we are linked with him mainly for homegrown purposes because we need to meet that quota. So perhaps things could develop in the next week or two. Let's keep an eye on it. What's the point saying Lucas was a good dribbler, but that's where it ends? Yeah, but I won't have anyone talk down on Lucas Moura. He gave me the best moment as a Spurs fan in probably my whole life, other than the Europa League. So what a legend he was. He said it's amazing how Spurs fans are so accepting of low end product players. Do you know what, Frank? I'm going to give you a testy one now. I'm going to give you a test. would you say Mohamed Kudus is a low-end product player? I love causing debates here. I love it. Go on.
No, I wouldn't. I think one thing that I don't know what his view is on what the point's view is on Dominic Solanke, for example. But I think everyone kind of frowned a little bit at Solanke last year, and it was too much. And don't get me wrong, I would have liked Solanke to score a couple more goals last year and whatever. But I mean, the system I don't think always benefited him. And we spoke about it the other day. I think this year he'll go above and beyond and start scoring some more goals. But I think we kind of frowned on it because it was, we're supposed to be Tottenham and we're signing players from Bournemouth. And I think that's it's quite a naive way of looking at it, but it does happen a lot. I mean, if I look at the last signings we made from Real Madrid and Barcelona and players like it was Emerson Royale, Sergio Reguilon, it just because you get them from these big clubs, it doesn't mean that they're instantly better players. And so I think we instantly look at Kudus because he's at West Ham, or Solanke because he was there, or Odeberg because he was at Burnley, or the list goes on. And so no, I don't think he's a low product player. I think he's playing a side that is pretty rubbish to be honest, or have been over the last year. And I think that's not a dig at West Ham. I think Potter will change that and whatever. But they're a side that are aging, and other than him, Bowen and Paqueta when he was kind of there, Souček pops up with some goals over the season, but they weren't flowing. And so it's kind of tough to really carry a side like that when he's not, he's not Messi, and so it's don't get me wrong, but I think he'd be a player that I think he would improve us. I think he'd improve us. I don't think we have a ball carrier, I think Kulu can. But I don't think we have a ball carrier that really does it at pace and really does it with speed and can hurt you. And I think he could be that one. Would I pay more than 70 odd? Probably not. But I think 60 to 70, that sort of range, I think would be a good deal for Tom.
Yeah, no, 100%. Good points there, mate. I think a lot of the fan base don't really care how much we get it done for. I know I saw an argument on one of the channels earlier. It was like, we shouldn't be paying, like you've just said, 70 to 80 million for a Kudus. And then you turn around and you think, actually, a lot of these people don't really, care about how much we spend. We need to spend to be essentially challenging with the big clubs and, keeping up. And like you were saying, Mitch, like if a Chelsea comes in for a Kudus, we need to be not messing around with like a £58 million bid or a, £59.5 million bid or whatever it is. Just give West Ham what they want. If Frank's identified that that's the player he wants, get it done. Like that's what annoys me about Tottenham Hotspur. I don't want to get onto a rant because people know how I feel, in terms of how we've dealt with transfer windows before. But I think if we get £60 million done, bang, I think the fan base will suddenly be excited for the new season. Hopefully 2 or 3 more then come in, and it starts that sort of feel-good factor. At the moment, you go on Twitter, it's a cesspit at the moment. I mean, it's absolutely toxic as anything. Everyone's saying, what are Tottenham doing? It's 2nd of July. We're playing Luton in 3 weeks. And I agree to an extent. But I'm giving it I said to Frank the other day, I'm giving it another week or 2. And then I'm starting to really throw the towel at, like, what is going on here? Like, Mitch, for you, like, how quickly do you think we need to start getting this transfer window underway? Because it's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, well, our first pre-season game's on the 19th of July. And it's the 2nd of July. So... that gives us 2.5 weeks till pre-season officially starts. The players are back at Hotspur Way, I believe, on Saturday.
Correct.
So, they'll be checking in and meeting Frank for the first time. So I think realistically, the way a club will work is if they're hiring a new manager, they will give that manager at least a couple of sessions to have a look at the players that he's got and decide which ones he definitely wants to keep. So I don't want to be lenient with the club because I do think we're sort of like lacking behind everyone else in terms of the transfer market when you look at the business our rivals are doing. But I would hope at the very latest at the start of next week we are pretty much done with this Kudus deal, or at least someone of some significance that is going to improve our squad. Because you click your fingers and the season will be starting. So we can't afford to bring players in when we're halfway through pre-season because it just messes up the integration period. It messes up the feeling, considering you've got a new manager and coach and stuff that are coming in that are getting used to the club and everything as well. Too much change, it just causes a bit of an unbalance. And all of a sudden, you start the season slowly because of that. And then pressure builds on you immediately. So
Right.
we need to be very, very careful. And I think it's a very, very difficult one to judge, because when you look around and you watch your rivals spending the money, you watch in Man United immediately after the season ends, activate Cunha's release clause and get that over the line. You look at Chelsea going out and just getting the Delap deal done. João Pedro out of absolutely nowhere. Liverpool spending 100 million plus on a player. That's probably causing a lot of envy in the fan base, and that probably heightens the anger that a lot of people have with the lack of signings. And I think realistically, we all know deep down that it doesn't necessarily always work in a way where we get things done very, very quickly. But I just think we don't have any excuses with where we finished in the Premier League last season. So that's why people are more frustrated. And I do think that we have every right to be as well, because we've got some fixing to do when it comes to that league form, and that includes bringing players in.
100%, mate. And also, what message does it send out to the fan base? You essentially sack Ange Postecoglou. That causes carnage, in terms of, I'd say, again, I haven't ran a poll, but probably 75% of people wanted to keep Ange after the Europa League win. To then make that brave decision, okay, now back it. Now do something with that. Start this fresh project on a buzz. Start it and go, bang, we're going to compete this year. We're going to invest. We're going to do 2 or 3 big signings. We're going to look like we're going to compete with the big boys, or at least compete in the top 6, 7, right? At the moment, I'm looking at the new season. I'm thinking, honestly, I think we'll be lucky to get top half at the moment, right? But until we do something, until we get a Kudus, get an Eze, get a Xavi Simons, strengthen the number 6 position that we don't really have a solid number 6. Strengthen at defense where we need a bit of backup. Strengthen on the wing where we need some support for Johnson. Until we do that, I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, we're cooked for this season. Like, this isn't going to go well. People are going to start going absolutely nuts that we didn't do more. I can see it happening. It happens every single time we start a new cycle. We say we didn't back the manager enough. We didn't back him to go and do something with this change of scenery. And until we do something different, I said I wasn't going to go on a rant, didn't I? Until we do something different, it's going to be the same cycle with Tottenham Hotspur. Frank won't get back properly. Maybe we'll have a new manager bounce, and then suddenly the cracks unfold. We haven't got the squad depth. We come to the end of the season. We haven't won anything. We maybe finish 9th, 8th or whatever. And then suddenly the pressure's on. Oh, what? We need to back the manager now. Like, it's the same cycle. And I just want to break that. I want to be able to say at the end of the transfer window that we've sufficiently backed this manager with what he needs, and then get to a stage where we're progressing as a club. Because I feel like sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right? We do something great. We won the Europa League. Right now, we're in the Champions League. We've got that pull factor. Let's go and do something. Let's go and make a statement. Let's try and keep up with Chelsea, who are spending millions and millions. Okay, maybe we can't spend that much money, but at least try and do something to at least make the fans excited and get them on board and get a good buzz around. I mean, Mitch, I'm not sure if you're a season ticket holder, but Frank, I know you're a season ticket holder. Like, if you're going into the season with one signing new, you're not going to be very buzzing about the new season as much, are you? You see what I mean?
No, you're not. You're not. I mean, there's a couple of things, and I want to make really clear for, I am anti-Daniel Levy, and I want to make, so I'm not going to back him up as such, because I want him to go, and that's the only thing I will kind of argue is you sign players for 4 or 5 years. You sign players for on term. You don't sign players for August and September. So you might start slowly, and that is something that is an issue. But I would rather them get the right players over the line and done by the end of the transfer window than going, we're going to rush it and go for this player instead because we can get him now. And that aligns with pre-season. So that's kind of the only thing I'll back him up on. But yeah, I mean, the excitement factor and whatever is certainly a thing. Like if we line up with Kudus in the first day of the season, or if it was Eze or Xavi Simons, whoever it be, there's certainly an excitement because you want to watch the best players play for Tottenham. I think one problem that we've had massively in that we don't have that excitement constantly is that we actually, the money we spend, we don't spend that much lower than some of those sort of other clubs, other than Chelsea and City have, spend freakish amounts of money. But usually, maybe this summer we've been a bit slower, but usually our spending's quite similar. It's obviously the wages that are far lower and the wage revenues, and it's a different argument. But so it's a whole different conversation because it goes very deep financially. But that's kind of the problem. And so the second we are linked to a player that we all deem as a top player, as a Kudus, Xavi Simons, there's a real excitement and a real sort of desire to want them at Tottenham. I think Xavi, as I say, I think Kudus makes us a better side, and I will be massively excited if we get him. He wasn't my first choice, so I agree with Mitch. I think Eze probably was, but then I look at Eze. I don't know what Eze finished on numbers wise. We talk about sort of numbers and output and things. I'm pretty sure Eze only had a couple of league goals up until about April time, when he then went off on one. So that's kind of goes both ways. I'd be excited if it's about the idea of a statement signing or a marquee signing. I guess is what brings excitement. And I think they will make one, whether it be in the next week, by pre-season or whatever. I think they will make one this summer.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it needs to happen soon. Interesting point about the wages as well, Frank. Again, we haven't got the time to digest the wages, but we know we're not paying enough. Only, a handful of players over 100K a week is clearly, it's like we're doing 2008 wages. Unfortunately, we need to catch up on that sense, don't we? But I want to move things over to Christian Romero. And the latest update, apparently, according to Paul Joyce, is that Spurs want about 70 million to sell Romero this summer, with Atletico Madrid preparing to step up their pursuit. Atletico have contacted Spurs about Romero, but clubs are still some way apart in their valuations. And I'm not too sure if that means that, we're sort of bidding. Atletico Madrid are bidding like 50, 60 million, and perhaps, 70 million is going to be hard to get to. But if this is true, looks like Atletico Madrid are going to try and do everything they can to get Romero, and I think we could see in the next week or so this even step up another notch. And again, like I said at the start of the video, I'm hoping this doesn't happen, because everyone knows how I feel about Romero and keeping him on board in this project. Is he irreplaceable? Well, he's certainly replaceable, but how much is there out there to get in terms of adequate centre-back replacements? But Mitch, I'm going to come to you just quickly, because I don't know your opinion on Romero, but because I know there is also fans that say, like, let's cash in, he's a bit of a nutter kind of thing. And I think that's quite a narrow-minded approach to it. But what's your thoughts? Would you take 70 million for Romero, or are you very much like me, like we need to keep this guy on board as long as his head's in Tottenham and not Argentina?
My opinion is, under no circumstances should we be selling Christian Romero this summer. Like I said, sort of at the start of the video, I genuinely think he is a world-class defender and arguably our only world-class player at Tottenham at the moment. If it were up to me, I would have given him the armband and painted him as the leader. And I think we should be doing everything we can to get him to sign a new contract. He is that good. He is a leader, and he leaves 110% of himself out on that pitch every single time he plays. And I know there's that sort of stigma around he first played for Argentina and stuff like that. But I mean, you guys will have seen what that Europa League win meant to him and how he celebrated and how smashed he got at the parade and stuff like that. He was so happy and so relieved. And I can't think of a suitable replacement off the top of my head that I would want to bring in to replace Christian Romero. And I know people will point to the contract situation, and some people will say, if you don't want to be at the club, then we should cash in on him, especially if we can get 70 million quid. But yeah, I mean, to Carlos's point there, I think he does play for the badge. And I do think he genuinely loves Tottenham. And while comments have come out over the last few months with what he said about wanting to play maybe in Spain or whatever, I think it's natural when you've been at a club for a few years that you want to explore other things, especially when he's not fluent in English and maybe he's never really settled as comfortably as other people have. But Romero is a fantastic defender, in my opinion, one of the best defenders in the world, and I'll be gutted if he does go. And if Atletico Madrid want him, minimum they should be paying this 70 million quid. I think he's worth more than that. But I guess the club have their own valuation for him as well.
Yeah, no, fair points, mate. I think it's fair to say that you don't want to see Romero leaving the door at N17 this summer for sure. And I think I agree with you. I think in this market, some of the values we've been talking about. I mean, I mentioned it yesterday. João Pedro, is he worth 50 something million? In my opinion, no. But it's just the prices are crazy. So why can't we get a 75 million pound valuation for Romero? I think Atletico Madrid are trying to shop at a thrift shop here. Like, it's not a thrift shop. Like you said, he's a world-class player. He's got world-class attributes. He's a winner, right? He's won the World Cup with Argentina. He's won the Europa League now with Spurs. I think he was defender or even player of the season in Serie A before he signed for us. I mean, he's a phenomenal player. There's no doubting it. People will say, Romero's got an attitude, but that's part of what makes him that Rolls Royce, the part of what makes him, that aggressive centre back that goes into challenges, with no sort of fear, just absolutely playing for the badge. And I agree with you. I think he does play for the badge. However, there will be a concern from some people that Romero is very much country over club. I think a lot of the Argentinian players are. And obviously you've got the World Cup coming up next year, which is coming around pretty quick. So, has he got a bit in the back of his mind that he's focusing more on Argentina? There's always that debate as well. I won't debate it now, but it's worth considering. Wise Guy saying he's okay. He's more than okay, Wise Guy. He's a top player. I hope you're not talking about Cutty Romero there. Abdul Rahman saying, is Eze coming? We'll mention Eze in just a moment. Well, we are sort of running out of time. These live streams feel like they're going for 10 minutes and they're going for 45 minutes. It's just how it goes. Carlos is saying 70 mil and he can go. He has a lot of experience. Guys, I'll tell you what, if you're watching on catch up, because I know a lot of you do, whack in the comments on this YouTube video now if you would take 70 million for Christian Romero. Let me know in the comments below. I'll reply to all the comments later on. And guys, there's about 50 something watching on YouTube now. Please smash the thumbs up. I think it's 24 likes. Let's get that to 50. And in a moment's time, I want you guys to do me a massive favor and go and sub to Mitch as well, who does some great Spurs content. But last talking point, I promise, is around. Let's get rid of that. Eberiche Eze, this morning, Fabrizio Romano saying that after direct contact revealed on Monday, Eberiche Eze has opened the doors to Arsenal move in a clear way. Apparently, he's open to joining Arsenal project and attracted by this chance for his future, and that Arsenal are informed on the release clause details and more. And if you go to the bookmakers' odds, I know that's not a set in stone sort of way of looking at it, but Arsenal are now favourites to sign Eberiche Eze. It's going to break Tottenham fans' hearts. It's going to cause a lot of a meltdown. I know it just naturally happens on social media if we're linked with a player and he goes elsewhere, especially to our bitter rivals. So, Mitch, if Eberiche Eze goes to Arsenal, are you going to, I mean, it's probably a silly question, but are you going to be absolutely fuming, or are you going to be like, these things happen? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I'll be upset, to be honest. Look, from Eze's perspective, I can understand obviously why Arsenal would be an attractive project for him. I don't know where he's going to play for them, though. I'm going to assume they'd stick him on the left wing, but I don't think that's his strongest position by any means. So there's that to consider as well. And yeah, it would be a really painful one, especially considering we scouted him when he was at QPR. We're close to bringing him in from there. And then we've had him very near the top of our list for the last 2 years as well, but just never pulled the trigger. To be honest, with the Eze one, I do genuinely think the only reason we haven't pulled the trigger is because of the release clause issues and how much Palace require or want up front and all the other intricacies that are involved with that deal. But yeah, if I do end up seeing him in an actual Arsenal shirt, not just the ones that I've seen photoshopped online, it'll be a bit of a painful one, to be honest. Like I said earlier, he's one of my favourite players in the Prem at the moment, and to see him in your arch rival shirt would not be a nice sight at all.
But just to play devil's advocate there, I bring Frank back into it. Mitch, I know you said about like the intricacies with the release clause. I'm reading that the release clause for Eberechi Eze is £68 million, which I don't think is a stretch. Like when we're talking about Kudus, we're talking 70 to 80 million. I can understand why people are like, that's a bit too much. But with Eberechi Eze, he's an absolutely class player that could probably, in my opinion, go to the likes of probably even the likes of a Bayern Munich, likes of a Man City. It's not like we're talking about a player that is a bit of a gamble here. It's like he's going to be class. He's been class for like many, many seasons now, especially in the last 2 or 3. He gets into the England team. Like he's a top player. 68 million, Frank. If you were in charge of Tottenham and you said 68 million, who are you going to go and buy? Eberechi Eze is going to be at the top of that list, isn't he?
Yeah, he's up there. He's up there. I really like him, and I say he's probably my number one. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I look at kind of Kudus, and I think what Kudus offers you more is pace, and Tottenham don't have an abundance of pace in that team, and pace is what hurts you at the top level. You know, I mean, I think of one off the top of my head. About a year ago, we played Wolves, and we lost 2-1, and it was when they had Pedro Neto, and we were kind of. It was 1-1, I think, at the time. We kind of had a lot of the ball, and literally Neto just went bang, goal, just from running the length of the pitch at pace. And Spurs have Johnson's quite quick, but doesn't seem to sort of go at you. And so Eze is superb, and I really like him. I think he's a top player. And I mean, at £68 million, I think Paul O'Keefe was saying that you could have it in kind of 3 installments or whatever. It would make sense to me, and I would really like him. But I do sort of, the more I think about it, as much as I think he's great, I'm starting to think Kudus suits the idea of the system more, because given that as well, you've got Kulusevski, you've got James Maddison in that 10 role. Obviously, we don't know how bad the Kulu injury is. We said that the other day, that there was a photo of him in a wheelchair about 3 weeks ago. So that isn't obviously a good sign. But we only really have Johnson on that right-hand side for now. Kulu as well, but you know, I think you need to pick one that can play solidly in both, or very well in one. And I think Eze is probably beaten to that idea by Kudus.
No, interesting points. Especially on the fact that you think that a Kudus is essentially what we need more than an Eze, and I think perhaps Mitch, maybe that sort of I guess lessens your worries in the sense that obviously if he goes to Arsenal, terrible, but it is a good point from Frank. A number 10 isn't our priority right now. We have James Maddison, who on his day is absolutely a brilliant player. You maybe not seen the consistency since he's joined Tottenham, but certainly a very good player. But Eze, he predominantly plays more on the left side if he's gonna be a versatile player. Left wing, and then we've just signed Tell on a permanent. So, I mean, Mitch, just to come on back to sort of speaking about one more point. Xavi Simons is one we haven't talked about in this live stream. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Xavi Simons as a player, and I've seen a couple of different links with us to him now. Football London yesterday wrote an article which essentially mentioned that Spurs are linked with João Paulinho as a number 6, who 100% we need a number 6. I've mentioned it in so many different videos. Like everyone knows we need a number 6. But midfield combinations could include Bergvall, Maddison, and Kulusevski as existing players, but potentially a Xavi Simons is now being spoken about. Just to get your thoughts, mate. Like, what would you want a Xavi Simons in the team? I mean, his stats last year were unbelievable. He's a young player, lot of talent. Do you think he'd do well at Tottenham, or do you think it's a risk because he's coming from the Bundesliga, he's not Prem proven, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's a risk. I think as Simons obviously is the only one that really doesn't have that Premier League experience. I think it's very, very clear that we are targeting that Premier League experience for the most part in terms of our sort of signings that we want to make this summer. I really like him. I think he's got very, very high potential. I say he's got a higher ceiling than Matthias Tell, but I almost put him in a very similar sort of bracket in terms of you don't know if you're going to get him firing straight away if you were to sign him. Obviously, we'd spend a lot more money on him as well than opposed to what we have done for Tell. And then it's very difficult to see where he fits in. I don't and this is my fault for not doing the research, I don't actually know what his best position is, Simon. So it would be one of those where he would maybe be used in a number of different ones. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because you're going to want cover throughout the year. You're going to want versatility in attack. I'm sure Thomas Frank would love that. I would still put Kudus ahead of him if I had to choose one, and that mainly does come down to Premier League experience. I think that is a crucial thing. Like I said earlier, we can't afford to start slow this season, and you know that Kudus can come into this team and make an instant impact. With, you know, we've seen what he can do. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on him.
No, that's fair enough. Is a calculated sort of assessment, essentially, like with a bit of, you know, reservations on how he fits in. And I think also worth pointing out, like, in terms of his positions, like mainly left wing, but also can plays in the 10. It's sort of, it's more left wing than the 10, but also, you know, more recently he's been playing a lot more of the number 10 and can play right wing. So he is versatile in that sense. Frank, just very quickly, your thoughts on Xavi Simons. I know we've spoken about it in a previous live. Do you think he's arguably more of an attractive player than a Kudus?
I think that talking about ceilings and things, I think his ceiling is actually higher than Eze and Kudus. I've not seen massive amounts of him, but I mean, from the bits I have seen, I think he looks very good. So I think his ceiling is slightly higher than those, but I think it is a bigger risk, because you know what you're going to get with Eze, you know what you're going to get with Kudus, you know that, you know, or Semenyo or whoever. I know he's not coming now, but you know, those sort of players, you know that they're going to come in and have an impact, hopefully straight away. Xavi Simons is young and may take some time. I think his ceiling is higher. My only thing with Xavi Simons, which is probably a little bit of a bias, is when England played Holland last year in the Euros, he really got on my nerves. So I've kind of tried to push that idea away a little bit. No matter how good he is, he whinged for 90 minutes and it got on my nerves. So for now, Kudus and Eze, one of the two. If he came in, I'm sure I'd love him.
Mate, Richarlison used to get on my nerves, but when
Exactly.
He's one of your own, it changes, doesn't it? It changes, you know, your perception of a player that may be slightly annoying. It's a good points all round, guys. I really enjoyed today's discussion. Guys, before you do all click off the video, please don't do it just yet. Give me 30 seconds. Please do 3 massive favors for me. Smash the like button. It's free to do so. If you're watching on repeat, comment below your thoughts on today's talking points. Romero, Eze, Kudus, Xavi Simons. We've talked about all sorts. And the third thing, which is really important, because Mitch has given up an hour of his time today, which I really do appreciate. And Mitch, it's been great to have you on today, mate. Guys, please go and subscribe to Mitch's channel. I put it in the comments below. I'm trying to pin it, but my tech ability, I can't seem to do it. But it's on the screen. It's in the comments about 3 times. Mitch, what's coming up on your channel, mate? And what can people expect to see?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for having me on. It's been fun to chat and sort of get out in the open everything that's going on with Spurs. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, in terms of my channel, it's just pretty steady flow at the moment of mostly transfer content, and with a mix of trying to embed in some Thomas Frank content in there as well, sort of what we're going to expect from him coming into the club, how things are going to change, the targets that we should perhaps be going for, and then it's just up-to-date stuff as well as it happens. Like I say, if something major comes up on Kudus in the next couple of days, that will be up on the channel. I've got a video that I'm working on at the moment about Heung-min Son, whether Spurs should keep him this summer or sell him. So yeah, if you fancy any of that sort of content, yeah, I'd massively appreciate it if you would head over to the channel. But again, thank you for having me on. It's it's been a pleasure.
No problem at all, mate. No, it's been great. Frank, you've been great as well. Thank you so much. Guys, go and check out Mitch. I've put the link in the comments. Let's go and get him another. There's like 50-something people still watching. I think 60 or 70, including Facebook. Everyone, please go and subscribe to him. Subscribe as well to SpursRelated down below. It's all free to do so. I'm not asking anyone to pay a penny. It just helps the channel grow. And guys, like the video. Comment if you're on repeat. Frank, you've been great as well. Thank you for coming on again, mate.
Cheers, mate. I've enjoyed it again. I'm enjoying being back this regularly.
Super stuff, mate. Super stuff. Mitch, thanks again. Guys, go and check everyone out. Go and subscribe, like, and we'll be back again for another video or live stream. Keep those notification bells on. And as always, remember, come on, you Spurs!